what, Helen?
We're on air.
Hi, welcome to Channel 5 Amstead Morning News.
You are here today with Gregory and Helen on this fine Monday morning, April 3rd, 1948.
This just in, President Truman has just signed the Marshall Plan, and also known as the European Recovery Program, which will provide U.S. economic assistance to European nations.
Yes, ma'am. Named after George C. Marshall, the Marshall Plan is an American initiative to aid Western Europe in which the United States is giving over $13 billion in economic assistance to help rebuild Western European countries after World War II.
Exactly. Here we have President Truman explaining why this is being done. President Truman?
The Marshall Plan is being put in place to combat the evils of poverty, hunger, and chaos that grip the helpless European nations. They are desperately calling our names. Our policy is not directed against any specific country or any specific belief. The beaten people of the earth look to us to pull them out of this struggle, and we must respond. Thank you.
Thank you, President Truman, commenting all the way from the White House. The Marshall Plan seems to have wonderful intentions, but many have mentioned that it almost seems too good to be true. Let's take a look at that with expert Larry Lumen, a member of the Senate, who has studied the United States' relationship with the Soviet Union for the past decade. Larry?
Thank you, Helen. I think that the Marshall Plan is a brilliant idea. Not only does it help those in Europe who are the most vulnerable right now, but it also accomplishes another task that appeals to our citizens, the American citizens. That is to keep the European nation out of the Soviet Union's sphere of influence. Therefore, it remains clear that the Marshall Plan is actually directed at one specific nation, and that is the Soviet Union. Obviously, the true goal of this program is to stop Soviet expansion in Western Europe. Back to you, Gregory.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Lumen. Clearly, there are two different ways to view this program. Well, I sure do hope that the aid recovers these vulnerable countries. Tweet at us with messages of your opinions on the Marshall Plan.
While we wait for those to come in.
Got it! Looks like we have some eager watchers. Helen, why don't you read that tweet that literally just flew in?
Give me a second. This one we have here comes from an anonymous writer from the Soviet Union. Dear Americans, I'm deeply offended by the Marshall Plan. Since I realize that you are trying to block Soviet Union expansion in Western Europe, you and others will regret this.
Wow. Is that all?
Looks like there's a little scribble on the bottom here. It says, P.S. This is Stalin. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just read you a letter from the Stalin. Clearly he is not content with the Marshall Plan.
Wow, I had no idea Stalin watches this. Anyway, folks, we will see you next time reporting live from Channel 5 Amstead Morning News.
Oh my, Greg, chili pepper boxer. I really can't deal with you today, Greg.
We're on air.
Oh, this just in. Hundreds of U.S. airplanes have been sent daily to this western sector of Berlin, Germany, in response to the Soviet Union's decision to close American, British, and French access to this city.
Yes, ma'am. As this city is located within the Soviet Union zone of occupation in Germany, and now that its supply routes have been cut off, the U.S. planes have been delivering food and supplies by air to Berlin to keep it attached to Western Europe.
Stalin was not kidding when he wrote that letter that we would regret attempting to contain his expansion.
That's for sure. Let's get a deeper look into why the Soviets decided to isolate Berlin in the first place. Back to expert Larry Lumen. Larry?
Thanks, Greg. The Soviets are blocking Berlin because they see this city as a useful pressure point in the Cold War. By closing off Western access to Berlin, they could challenge the Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. Now to you, Helen.
Thank you, Mr. Lewin, for detailing us with the desperate situation that those in Berlin are experiencing. Up next, Gregor and I will be hearing from a few viewers with personal experiences with the Berlin aircraft.
Well, I have been named the Candy Bomber as a result of the loads of candy that I dropped in Berlin during such a hard time. It has been an amazing experience to witness the surprise and excitement of the people of Berlin. I know they have not eaten candy in a long time.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the Candy Bomber of the Berlin Airlift, living evidence that not all bombs are bad. Here we have some lovely pictures straight from Berlin. How cute.
Thank you. Now for the weather with Walter.
Thank you, Helen. Here you can see we have a light breeze of planes coming from the French, British, and American sectors of West Berlin into East Berlin, which has been taken over by the Soviet Union. With this breeze of planes comes supplies and aid for the people, and also a light showering of candy comes with this breeze, a tasty surprise for those kids. This front doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon. In fact, from my calculations, I predict that it will stop May 12th, 1949.
So we're doing Gregory and Helen this time.
No, it's Helen and Gregory.
We're doing Gregory. Thanks for tuning in to Channel 5 Amstead Morning News. You're here with Gregory and Helen.
See you next time.